Another reason why when I left Christianity, I embraced atheism is that 1% of the world, or 82 million people, are asexual. So, Christianity, especially nationalism, white supremacy, white man's religion, never taught me about non-straight people, like LGBTQIA plus individuals, or just people who are different. They never taught me about anyone, man or woman, that was asexual, aromantic, child-free, people who had reproduction issues. And by that, I mean people who don't fit the ideal idea of womanhood, like you know how women in the Bible are usually put into two categories: barren and women with a lot of children. Christianity doesn't consistently support and applaud women for choosing to go against the Christian ideal natural way of life, which is being a mother and being a wife. People like myself who choose instead to be child-free, not because I can't have kids, even though not having the ability to have kids is a perfectly valid reason to be child-free. I don't need any reason or any justification to be different. The idea that the default setting of being a woman is you want children and just being a wife because you're a woman is utter ridiculousness. And there's nothing wrong with longing to be a wife and a mother. Just don't make it your entire identity. Have your own career, even if it's not something you do outside the home. Make sure that you can earn your own money if necessity arises. Make sure you have your own friends, your own support group. You need to have an identity outside of being a wife and a mother, because that's not the only thing you should be. You should also be somebody's friend, somebody's mentor. There are so many different roles. You should not just be attached to a man or to children. And this is not the case in the biggest denominations that I've visited. And every church is different. But the biggest denominations, and I would say almost 10 churches I've been to, they don't have an identity outside of their being a wife and a mother. They don't. And I've met a few that fortunately they married later in life, in their late 30s to early 40s, and they have a career already started with many degrees, so they don't want to give it up. But if you can't earn your own money and you don't have your own support group, you're in a position that is most likely to become a power imbalance, and that's where abuse and financial issues arise. So there's nothing wrong with being a wife and a mother, but you better make sure you have everything nailed down, so if it does go south, you can earn your own money, you can support yourself and any kids you have, and that you have an identity and a support group outside of your immediate family. And a lot of women do not have that in patriarchal institutions. And it's very sad. There's nothing wrong with being a cis heterosexual father. Just don't make that your whole identity. You need to have your own friends, your own support group outside of your family unit. You need to have interests and things you enjoy doing outside of your family. You need to have an identity outside of what comes out of your body and what you bring into the world. You need to have many different parts of yourself. I don't make my atheism, my child-freeness, or my lack of a partner my identity. It's just one part of myself. Several parts of myself. careful what dreams, career options, and good positive things you allow to escape you. Because men are 6 times more likely to replace you with a younger model. Don't ever give up your youth for anybody. Don't give up your dreams for anybody but for your choice, your decision. Because at the end of the day, you have to live with your choices. You cannot blame any adult or any child for your lack of having the best life you could have had. And I have to always work on being a better person and never let my choices be my identity. And there's a lot of asexual people, aromantic people who just don't fit in the traditional choice group of anything. And I think it's important to normalize people who just don't want those things, either because of their orientation or because it's not their passion. We need to normalize women not having kids and aromantic people just choosing to live by themselves or with a partner that they want. We need to normalize romantic, sexual, and platonic partnerships that don't issue children. Children are a gift, but that doesn't mean everyone wants that gift. And Christianity does a very poor, consistent job of making sure that everyone in church is honored equally, not based on their marital status. And that's just something we're all going to have to work on. But I've met at least 2 asexual, aromantic, and one of my therapists was a demisexual. And it was a very interesting thing to learn about. And every week I'm trying to learn a different niche within sexual orientation. It's not something you choose, but being an ally, you can't call yourself a good ally if you're not constantly educating yourself. Because that's what separates us from other people. The bigots, the people who don't see asexuality as a viable, honoring, worthwhile, and valuable way to live their life. They see them as broken people. And I don't see people that way. And learning a lot about asexuality was, in my opinion, very, very unusual compared to how I had been raised. I mean, if you've listened to previous videos, I'm not going to go into depth of the kind of life I lived, but it kind of felt like a Hallmark movie where nobody is ever anything but straight. Everyone wants to get married, and everyone just acts like their life hasn't started until Mr. Right comes through the door. And there's nothing wrong with watching a movie like that. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not really into rom-coms, and I just don't like it. But occasionally I'll watch one. But I just grew up in an environment that was so sterile of anything not heteronormative. I didn't even know what straight and heteronormative was, because that would have implied there was something that wasn't. And every Christian book I'd ever read was about how every woman wants to be married, and anyone who doesn't want to be married or isn't constantly trying to become married is living in open rebellion against God. And come on, not everybody wants to be, and I'm going to try to be kind here, not every woman wants to be an unpaid housekeeper, baby monitor, and I don't think there's a nice way to say it, some guy's sex partner that isn't paid. So not every woman views this kind of life of being a homemaker and a baby maker as something they want to do. And there was so much disdain and just generalization in white man's religion. They denied that there were men that had low sex drives, or that women had high sex drives. Some, that not everyone fit into the one-size-fits-all, everything is what it is, and you can't change it, and there's no reason to, because those people don't exist. So I grew up in an environment where it's like everybody that wasn't a white male or a woman who was never in charge, those were the only kinds of people that existed. And it's so, so sad. But learning about heteronormative expectations is very different. And I knew what they were. I just didn't know the words, the labels. I didn't know what heteronormative meant. And like I always say, there is nothing wrong with being heteronormative. There's nothing wrong with being straight. There's nothing wrong with being gay or, enjoying life. Just, stop making everyone uncomfortable when they don't do that. And you're not better because you just happen to be able to naturally have kids without any reproductive complications. And I always feel bad for women that either weren't born like what Christian nationalists expect. I mean, there are people that are born with opposite gender organs. And if you grow up in a Christian environment, there is no way in hell that woman is going to tell anybody about it. It's going to be like the open secret of the family. Because gender is the only thing that women seem to matter. Your role is to have children. If you don't want children and you're not actively pursuing getting married to have children, you're unnatural. And that's not true. Half of the women in relationships or outside of relationships, outside of this country, are not having kids at all. I mean, I looked into a lot of Asian countries. They've seen that half of the paired up couples don't want to have kids, can't afford to have kids, or don't want kids. I cannot imagine what growing up aromantic or asexual is like in a sex-obsessed... I mean, sex is an idol to everyone. Religious, secular, a combination. I mean, it must be unbearable to live in a world that is crazy about something that you either can't understand, don't have the feelings that other people do. You have the feelings, but it's different than how other people desire it. Even having a low sex drive, if you're a man, is something you would never admit to. Not in front of a group of people. And being something that's completely out of your control, that's different, must be unbearable for people who actually believe in the idea that there are gender roles and two genders. I mean, I do not know how they grow up sane. And just because I'm cis and heterosexual does not mean I'm not traumatized and just, I don't want to say the word broken, but going to sex therapy for 3 years, I'm starting to learn that everything I thought I knew about myself and how I interact with other people romantically and sexually was all wrong. And it's not a religious issue entirely. It's a secular, religious, any institution that profits on the dehumanization of women and the profit of men is just awful. And expecting everyone to want to have sex, get self-help book in any library that mention asexual people. Not in the Baptist or Calvinistic denominations. And I look at stuff on YouTube all the time where Christian pastors are talking about that all men struggle with lust and sex addiction. Like, you cannot be 40 years of age and not know that there are people out there that don't want to get married, have sex, or do the heteronormative lifestyle. And that's not just asexual or aromantic people. There are people just like myself, cis and heterosexual, that want nothing to do with the heteronormative lifestyle. So they just choose to be single their whole life. And it's like, you cannot be 40 to 50 years of age and not know that there are people out there that are asexual. You can't. Unless you are so isolated from the realities of life, you have to know that there are different kinds of people. So, it shouldn't be funny, because it's not. Going to therapy is never funny. It's always serious, but I mean, there are times when I laugh. Humor is the only way I get through the stupid I have to deal with daily. And I cannot believe the things I've had to unlearn and relearn. 1%, I always call the asexual, the aromantic, the best 1% on the planet. Because it's true. Most people talk about the 1% as the millionaires, the billionaires, and the people that do terrible things. But I always refer to the 1% as, asexuals and aromantics. And those are just the people that have come out and admitted to it. I think there's more than 1%. I think there's at least 5%. A lot of people won't admit to it based on social pressure, religion, and just a lot of factors. But there's nothing wrong with being anything, as long as you are attracted to people 18 or over. And you don't, even if you like somebody and want a relationship, you don't have to be monogamous. You don't have to get married, and you do not have to do anything. As long as you're the best version of yourself with that other person, I don't care. I just don't. And who cares? Instead of focusing on what people are doing with their genitals, who they're marrying, and what they're doing, focus more on people who can't afford next week's groceries. Come on. There are so many other more important things we should be worried about. And I'm always learning new things about orientations that aren't the top 5. And aromantic, asexual people are a very interesting lifestyle to learn about. And I don't even like to use the word lifestyle. It's just the way of life for them. I mean, nobody chooses their orientation. It's something you discover along the journey of life. But I've only worked with one aromantic person. I've never worked with an asexual person, but I have watched a lot of shows and movies that did include at least one type of asexual person. I think recently I've been watching, what's that TV show, Heartstopper, the UK show. I think they have 3 seasons so far. And I'm trying to unlearn a lot of the expectations of heteronormative straight society. And just rock what you are and don't be the boring stereotype people expect. I mean, surprise people, subvert the trope, as I always say. And asexual people are just as valuable. And I don't even like, saying that they're as valuable, because anyone who doesn't think they're as valuable are not good people. They are not good people. They're probably ignorant, biased, but you cannot be a good person and say that asexual or aromantic people don't exist. Because erasing people is a hate crime. And it is intentional for an insidious agenda, but they do know what they're doing. You can't not know what you're doing. So we need to make these groups normal. We need to view them as though they're 100% normal. And we should not be surprised when someone's asexual, aromantic, demisexual. Like, we should not be surprised. In a group of 100 people, I expect up to 5 people to be under that umbrella. And I'm sure there's more. But I don't really talk to people about their orientation because I'm there to work, and it's not my business unless they make it my business. And we need more positive representation of asexuality and aromanticism in all media. Because even under asexuals, I mean, there are so many types, sub-labels of different kinds of people. I mean, the word asexual, when I started learning, I thought all asexual people didn't feel romantic or sexual love and they didn't want a relationship. Well, that's not true. Aromantic, or I'm not sure if they're a type of asexuality. I have not gotten that far, but they're people who just either don't want a romantic relationship, or it's not the kind of relationship most heterosexual people are going to assume it's going to be. There are asexual people that have sporadic sexual experiences. There are some that don't feel romantic love, sexual love, and just don't want a relationship. Then there are people that have just a normal relationship without the sex. There are so many types of asexuals and aromantics. If you Google it, it just goes on and on and on, the different labels. I counted at least 40 different types of asexual people. Never limit yourself. And there's so much to learn, so much to, just jump in the deep end of the pool and just start finding out things. But no, heterosexual people cannot be that dumb or oblivious that they don't know asexual people exist. Most of the major TV shows of the decade have at least one asexual person in the cast. So, I think we need to do a better job in how we view asexual, aromantic people, and we need more positive representations that are not a trope or a stereotype, whether it's positive or negative. We need to branch out into just different things. And asexuality and aromanticism is a very interesting part of the queer community. And there's a lot of bias within the LGBTQIA community. There's a lot of biphobia and acephobia in the queer communities. And that's something that I've addressed I think I've addressed it in past videos, but if not, we'll definitely get into it with the several reasons I left religion. But asexual people are a very interesting group, and they're just like everyone else. And I always say, if people wonder if there's something else, they probably need to educate themselves. They're just a different expression of sexuality. And sometimes the absence of sexuality or the absence of wanting to act on sexuality is just as valid as any other way people go about living their lives.